Hello everybody and welcome to the first vlog for Gamenightaton. So I am going to be doing weekly vlogs for Gamenightaton because every week I'm changing teams. So if you haven't heard about Gamenightaton, it's a readathon that I'm hosting in July and in December. This month, for the month of July, we are tackling a labyrinth themed board. And yeah, I have just set up my board. I have also spun a wheel to figure out which team that I'm going to be a part of for the first week. And so for the first week I'm going to be Team Circle. So yeah, nothing left for me to do but just to pull my first prompt card. So for those of you who are unaware about Gamenightaton, so I will have the announcement video linked down below, so you can also go and check out the full rules for it. But I am using the original board at the moment. I have just made a list of what each one of the original prompts corresponds to in terms of my own icons. But so I'm using the game prompts, but each one of these icons will correspond to an icon from my visual, and so that is the actual icon we're using. So for this game, whenever you land on a prompt, the idea is basically going to be that you are going to choose a book that corresponds to that prompt or that makes you think of that prompt. So it isn't like I gave a one-on-one relation, like this has to be a book about a ghost. No, you interpret that. When you see a ghost, you can think like, okay, I'm going to read a book about ghosts, but you can also just interpret it as being like, I'm going to read a book about like I'm gonna read a horror book, for example, or I'm gonna read a book with paranormal elements to it. I'm gonna read a book that has been haunting me because I haven't gone around to it, you know. All interpretations are valid, all interpretations are possible. And so yeah, I have set up my game and I'm gonna tell you right now that it's looking shitty. I have randomly placed the icons, like not the icons, but like the tokens on there. And luck has not been in my favor because this is just like an absolute horrible board. I'll take a picture of what it's currently looking like to share with you guys. I do have some small like roads in my board, but not a whole ton. So it's gonna make it a little bit more challenging for me to navigate the maze. But so let's shuffle these cards and get my first prompts. And so my first prompt is going to be the owl, I think. Yes. And the owl corresponds to, where are you? The flame icon. So I have to relate a book to the flame icon for me to choose from. So I'm gonna have to think on that, but meanwhile I'm going to demonstrate, I guess, how I'm gonna make my way along this maze. So I'm gonna do that holding my handheld, like my smartphone camera, because otherwise I have to constantly set up the angles again. So let's zoom out here and let's move you over into the handheld one. So I am starting from this spot, which is where the circle team starts, and I have to make my way over to, what was it? The owl, right? To there. And which in principle can be quite easy depending on what my extra, perfect, my extra is this, so I can just shuffle along like this. Yeah, fell on the floor, but that's fine. And then I can take this lovely route up to the owl. And so I've only made the one modification to the board, which is the minimum. You have to make one modification every single time you go for a prompt. And so I did that now. You can choose whether you do that before moving, during moving, after moving. But every single time that you pull a prompt card, you have to have made a move on the board, like you have to slit something along the board before you can move on to the next prompt card. But so yeah, I'm gonna have to have a think on what I'm gonna be reading for this prompt, and yeah, I'll check in with you guys once I have made a decision about that. Well, Where do I need to look there? So I have received a package today, and it is my birthday. I mean, I received it yesterday, to be fair, but it is my birthday today. I don't remember ordering anything, so I am kind of thinking that this is a gift. So I'll unpack it, hoping that that is the case. It could also be my lost broken binding shipment, but I don't think that that is the case because it is way too small of a box for that. I mean, way too small, not really, because it's a giant box, by the way, that just landed on my lap. Um, but the length of it isn't long enough for a broken binding box. So I don't think it's that. That would really surprise me for it to show up after a month. So I'm going to be opening it here now. I'm actually going to end the clip a little bit early just to open it, and then I can like unfold the box and fully go into it once I've done that, because one-handedly opening this tape apparently is not successful. All right, ready to dive into the box and see what is in there. And I see quite some notes. So, it's from Ewald. Thank you so much for the gifts. And let's see what's in there. I can already make an assumption because Ewald gave me a gift a few months ago, which was the second book in the Natural History of Dragons series. So part of me thinking maybe the third one. I don't actually remember whether I have it since added it into my wish list. So maybe not. But otherwise, I'm going to make a guess that that is going to be what is in here. Because I've since read and loved the second book in that series. And so he's keeping me accountable in that case. But let's see if my estimation is right. This is definitely a book. And what are you? Oh no, it's another book. And by the way, this is lovely packaging, by the way, but it's a book that I'm also very excited about. This is The Unworthy by Agostina Basterica. This is the second book by the author of Tender is the Flesh. Tender is the Flesh is a horror book featuring cannibalism, and The Unworthy is another horror book. I have read this book in Spanish, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it in English and seeing how much I actually understood of the Spanish. But in this one, we are looking at a dystopian society, and we're looking at this woman who is in some sort of a like convent restricted society cult type of setting, where like a lot of bad things are happening, and that's about all that I can really like remember synopsis wise. That doesn't go into spoilers. So yeah, I'll have to reread it to get a clearer synopsis to you guys, but I really enjoyed Tender is the Flesh, and I really enjoyed The Unworthy as well, and I'm eager to explore it in a way where I can understand every single word and so get every bit of the nuance, because my Spanish is good, but like there are definitely words in there that I won't know, and I basically try to go through books without looking up the vocabulary that I don't know, just to to get as much of the information from the book without based on my current level of understanding of the language. So yeah, that's a surprise. Maybe I really didn't add the third book too of A Natural History of Dragons in there, because I was kind of really assuming that was what this was going to be. But I'm very happy with this one. It's like a must read that has landed on my doorstep on my birthday. So I'm very happy with that. And this is something else. It's not a book. It's very difficult to get it out one-handedly. It's like, based on the packaging, I would almost think it's like a mug or something like that. So it is packaged up again. It is something ceramic, so it's probably a mug indeed. And I am going to have to put you down again in order to be able to open this. All right, we are back to fully open it. All that I've seen is that it does indeed say ceramic mug on the packaging. And come on. I tried to not fully open it yet so that it would, like, my reaction to it could still be like captured on camera, but now I am struggling. Come on, come out. Okay. Oh my god, that is on my wish list, I guess. Or otherwise, he has fully remembered that I love this, because I don't even, like the way that I'm holding it, I don't even see the mug yet. But because it's called Hokusai ceramic mug, I know what's in there. And it is a ceramic mug of the Great Wave by Hokusai. This is my favorite piece of art, which I hope I am correctly going to be showing this, because I have it on selfie mode. So, but it is hanging there in the Lego version. And I do also have another art print of the Great Wave to hang up in my hallway. So I love this piece of art, and this is an amazing mug that I'm so grateful to have received. Thank you so much, Ewald. As always, there's no need to give me gifts, but I understand the wish to give gifts. I'm also somebody who loves giving gifts to people who I interact with on a regular basis. And so thank you so much for this gift. It will be greatly used, and it is greatly appreciated as well. Eesh. Wow, it's way too dark. Ow. Hello, I am overheating over here, but I have received another package, and I know from Ewald that another package for his order was still to come. So there's another chance for this to be the next book in the Natural History of Dragons series, which is what I suspected the previous package to be. So let's go. It is probably, because it is gift wrapped, so it's probably the next gift. Is there a gift note in there? And I don't want to see the title. Yes, so this is indeed the next part of Ewald's gift. So thank you so much, Ewald. You really didn't have to do that, because that's really like 3 things. I'm being very much spoiled by you. It's very much appreciated. And let's see whether I am in fact correct about what's in here, and I am. So this is Voyage of the Basilisk, the 3rd book in the Lady Trent series. So the Memoirs of Lady Trent is a fantasy series. This is sort of like cozy fantasy about a woman who is kind of breaking the gender boundaries by investigating dragons in a time in a society in which women are still very much given the sort of like traditional Victorian era viewpoint, where, you know, like the man is the provider, the woman just like sits home, is pretty, has children, and prepares to be wed. Not in that order. So this is very much a book about exploration, a book about encounters with new cultures, about discovery, and, you know, like finding out new aspects to dragon culture, dragon behavior, dragon morphology at a time in which the dragon research is at its infancy. It's not that well developed yet. And so I really enjoy these books. They are like adventure stories. They're somewhat cozy, I say, because of the fact that it's not like a huge stakes, but it's also not like our characters are never in danger or anything like that. But it is very much sort of like a travel journal type of thing about a woman doing research. But the research isn't just, you know, like sitting at a desk reading books or anything like that. It is very much field research. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing that series, and now that I have a 3rd book, I can do so at my leisure. So thank you so much, Ewald, for this gift. And then I also have something else arrive, which is my own order, and it's not book related, it is heatwave related. And actually it is coming at a bad time, because it is supposed to rain in about an hour or so. Temperatures are going to cool down, and so the temperature should be bearable from that point onwards. But hey, we're ready for the next one. And that is a desk fan. So at work our air conditioning is somewhat reliable. Today it was pretty decent. Very cold, very enjoyable in that sense, but it has been known to not be as reliable all the time, and then I am dying at the desk sometimes. And so I was thinking like, okay, I've seen some other people with a desk fan and it's actually a nice thing to have. If I'm not going to be using it in the office, I can still use it over here, but I'll try to use it in the office. And so I ordered one in a moment of desperation when the airco was not working all that well. So yeah, that's my purchase for today. I also bought a cooling blanket, which I have to check whether it's already delivered. If it's delivered, it was not delivered to my house, it was delivered to the collection point. But yeah, I mean, maybe if it stops raining later on tonight, I might still go and grab it. But at this point in time, I'm just like thinking about the heat and being like, oh, I don't want to walk there even though it's so close by. So I might wait until later tonight if it is actually already delivered, so I'll have to check that as well. And annoyingly enough, HelloFresh is going to deliver tomorrow instead of today, and they're going to deliver during the day. So I got a message earlier today saying that they were going to deliver tomorrow instead of today, but on the app it's still set today, so it was a little bit confusing. And then I was kind of trying to make arrangements to go see Jurassic World. However, my friend cannot do it today or tomorrow, and I still have like my free ticket today or tomorrow. So in the end, we're not gonna go. We're gonna go next week. But yeah, because of the whole HelloFresh thing, I was like, yeah, okay, I need to know when they're gonna be delivering, because I need to know when I have the time to watch Jurassic World then. And so I called them to check, okay, if you're gonna deliver tomorrow or you're gonna deliver in the evening. And this, first of all, I had to wait like 20 minutes in the queue to get somebody on the line, and then she was like, yeah, in my system I still see it as being delivered today. So yeah, you just hang tight and probably it will still be delivered today, and otherwise it will be delivered tomorrow, so keep an eye on the tracking. I was like, okay, sure, but like if you're gonna deliver tomorrow, are you gonna deliver at the same time slot or not as my regular delivery? And she's just like, yeah, you know, normally we try to keep that in mind if possible, but of course it's not always possible, so just keep the tracking in mind. So useless conversation in order for 5 minutes later or so, the tracking to update and to say that they're delivered tomorrow at 12 o'clock in the day. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I guess tomorrow I'll go to the office, because my laptop is in the office, and I do have to kind of train a colleague on something while she's there, because on Friday she will be working from home. So I guess I'll go to the office for like the morning, and then I'll work from home in the afternoon in order to receive my HelloFresh box, because I'm not entirely sure what the temperature will be like tomorrow. It's supposed to cool down a lot, but I don't know whether it's going to be cool enough for that box to be in our hallway for a while, because, you know, like if they're gonna deliver at 12 o'clock, it's gonna be there for hours, which isn't good, and there will be shrimp in there. So yeah, I'll have to work from home in order to receive my HelloFresh box. So it is Saturday and I haven't spoken to you guys. So I've just done my second roll to get a second book because I also wanted a audiobook to kind of balance my other book with, because when I was cleaning today I wanted something to listen to. So my second roll, as you will have seen, was the number 3, for which I chose the Shadow Cabinet because it has 3 words in the title. So this is the second book in the, well, I don't actually, Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, I guess is the title, right, by Juno Dawson. So I started listening to that while I was cooking earlier today, and then also while I was doing a little bit of cleaning, so I've been really enjoying that one. I really fell in love with the first one, so I'm very happy to be diving into the second one. And without going into spoilers, I'm just shocked that something that was happening at the end of the book actually turned out to have happened, because I was just thinking that there was going to be some sort of a cop-out at the beginning of book 2, and now I'm like, wait, what? It actually happens? But so, let's go back to my first read, which is A Song of Legends Lost. This is just the naked hardback, so let me hold up the the dust jacket. So A Song of Legends Lost. This is a book that I'm really struggling to figure out the synopsis for this one, but basically we're following multiple characters. One of them is sort of like part of the nobility, and in this world the nobility has the power to invoke their ancestors, and they can use this bond to their ancestors to fight what is referred to as Greybloods, which is some sort of like creature type things that are using tech work. Tech work, still unclear to me what exactly it is, but so basically these Greybloods are trying to invade this world, and the nobility is responsible for trying to hold them back. At the same time, the king of this land and his representatives are very much trying to keep people away from exploring tech work on their own, and are also now diverting resources away from these sort of like border towns that are like the first line of defense. And then another perspective that we're following, for example, is also this girl whose family is involved in like trades that have to do with tech work as well. So I'm enjoying it so far. I am 200 pages in, and as I indicated, like, it's difficult for me to give a full premise because I don't really know the full scope of it yet. We've also introduced like 2 new characters within the second part of the book, so kind of figuring out how they all fit together and what the overarching story is going to be is still a little bit unclear to me, but I am enjoying it. However, I am reading this book for the flame prompt because I thought this had elemental magic in it. And I'm really not entirely that sure that it does have elemental magic in it, but there were flames in the very beginning. There is something that burned down. And I guess for me it is also a little bit like fire, the fact that I'm reading this now physically and that I'm going to be reading a over 500 page book physically in like 1 week time, which is something that I've definitely been struggling with throughout this year. It's not something that hasn't happened before this year, so is it valid? Who knows, but yeah, I'm just going to keep it for this prompt, even though in the end it doesn't feel like it fits the prompts all that well. But yeah, the prompt is there to help you choose your book, and I did choose this with the best of intentions, thinking that this was going to feature elemental magic, so who knows, it might end up suiting the book a little bit better than it has so far. It did have flames in the very beginning of the book, but yeah. So far I feel like it's not really in the spirit of the prompt. But so yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I checked in with you guys before finishing this book. Not that I'm anywhere close to finishing this book, but I also didn't want to, you know, like give an update at page 400 or 580, you know. So we are now going to dive back into reading. Hello everybody. I am very annoyed with myself at the moment because yesterday I had this point in time in which I was like really sucked into the book and like I was reading like 30 pages or so within like a 15-minute sprint. So I was like, ooh, we're there. I'm finally like engrossed in it. This is the type of reading mood I want to be in. And today we're in the opposite where I want to be in that type of reading mood, but like after 2 pages, I'm just like, okay, I need something else. I cannot focus. So, like, please, brain, just focus, sink into the story. Don't let anything else distract you. It's not even like when I then check like YouTube to watch something. It's not even that there's something there that I really, really want to watch right now. It's just that my brain cannot focus on reading clearly, and it's just constantly trying to escape whatever I'm doing to do something else. And I'm just like, just get over it and just read. I just want to be in like the reading flow and like completely sucked into a book, engrossed and continuing on. And cannot even blame it on this book because I was in that mood for part of it yesterday. So just get back to that, please. It is Wednesday afternoon. No, Thursday afternoon. I am working from home and I'm taking a short break in order to update you guys about my progress with the books this week because I am rounding off this vlog here and I'm gonna be spinning a wheel soon in order to determine which team I'm going to be reading for next. If you're on my Discord, you will see the result there already. But so, we are done with A Song of Legends Lost, and I really enjoyed this one a whole ton. And it's this sort of like weird experience where I was definitely invested, I was like captivated, I wanted to know what was happening, I wanted to continue and move along, but in the end I don't have those answers, and so in the end it's not like, oh wow, this is like an amazing 5-star read for me, because at this point in time I'm just like, I still don't really understand what I've just read, but I'm still like just eager to figure out more. I feel like, and I just discussed this with Scylla as well on the like the Discord of Sarah, where she was like where she was like, yeah, I think that this book is just there to ask like 20 questions. And I'm like, well, I definitely have 20 questions at this point in time, you know? There were a lot of questions that I was asking myself during the reading of this. And as I indicated earlier, I was like, if I have one qualm about my reading experience with this, then it is the fact that I am so hazy on the world building and that I feel like I don't really have a firm grasp of who all these people are or like on the exact world building. And this is also in part one of those stories that is about examining the truth of what you've been told. And so to some extent, I guess it makes sense for me to feel like this because, you know, it turns out that we don't really know much about what actually went down in the past. And yeah, I have 20,000 questions because I'm still like, wait, I know more now than I knew at the beginning of the book. I know parts of what has happened. I know the vague outline of things, but there are so many players within this story that I don't have enough of a grasp of who they are, what they are, where they come from, what are their goals, what are their motivations, are they good guys, are they bad guys, what is it that they're trying to achieve. And while that sounds like a super negative maybe to some, it is in some sense a positive because it means that I am invested. I do want these answers, but it just also means that I'm very confused at this point in time. So I'm still debating whether I'm just gonna kind of like vertically like scan through it to try and make a recap of it and see if that also slots a few more things into place into my brain or not, or whether I'll just wait to do that for my reread of this book whenever book 2 is gonna come out. But definitely a really good experience. It was a physical read, so it definitely took me way longer than I had hoped it would because the physical reading just hasn't really been there so far this year. And so this is also just a nice example of me having been able to process this book even though I was reading it physically, and physical reading has just been a drain on my focus for the past few months. So I definitely like was having a good time with it. I'm also happy that I didn't find an audiobook for it, because potentially that would have been to the detriment of my understanding, which is barely there now, but I would have felt like this confusion came from me not paying enough attention, and now I feel like, no, I did pay attention. I processed this book, okay. So but yeah, and my other qualm, both of our other qualm, would be the fact that there is a character that we both really enjoyed, that we got a POV from in part 1, and then during part 2 and part 3 we didn't get to see her anymore, so we had to wait until part 4 to revisit this POV that we've really been enjoying. And I guess if I'm gonna add a new qualm now, it would be that in the epilogues we get 3 perspectives that we haven't had at any point in time throughout the book, and I enjoyed those perspectives a ton as well, so hopefully this is like an introduction into these perspectives, and we'll get their perspectives throughout the second book. But yeah, that's my thoughts so far about this book. And even though I haven't mentioned it at all, I thought I'd also give a small update about Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. At this point in time, you haven't heard me talk about this book at all, because I haven't even filmed my June wrap-up yet. But so I did not manage to finish this book in June, and that is a surprise, because this is a book by Sayaka Murata, who's potentially my favorite author, but she is definitely the author of the book that I've just placed at #1 in my overview of my top 16 books of all times. And this book I struggled with. Really, this is like a 230-page book that has now taken me like 3 weeks or so to do. And the final few times in which I was reading it, I was just reading like 5 pages at a time. And I feel like that's been the case for most of my reading experience with this book. I probably got through more pages at a time in the beginning of my reading experience, but then it's just a book that I probably should have DNF'd, that I wanted to stick with because of the fact that I love Sayaka Murata, or I have loved 2 of Sayaka Murata's works, but this one just didn't work for me. So in Vanishing World, we're looking at a world where there is no longer a need for physical contact in order for babies to be born. And we look at the implications of that. Like, none of them are like, or there are some, but it's not necessarily the most logical implications. For example, this society still is very much focused on the idea of marriage, even though there is no sort of like physical contact between people. They do still enter into these marriage agreements, but then it is also sort of like seen as perverse if the other party tries to have sexual intercourse with their partner, for example. And this society, which I think is which makes more sense, but this society also still is very homophobic. So it is very much still a taboo to be attracted to somebody of the same sex, for example. So it has these conclusions, it has sort of like led to certain evolutions within the society. Some of them make more sense than others, but we are exploring these conclusions and the sort of like changing of society. More so, the theme that I kind of always latch on to when it comes to Sayaka Murata is sort of like the perspective of an outsider looking in, somebody who doesn't really fit in with within a society, and who's kind of trying to live their own life, and the struggle of doing so when the power of and the unity of society is so strong. And here we're actually looking more at a perspective of somebody who is slowly integrating into the normal. She is kind of abnormal from the get-go, because she is still born from a physical connection between 2 people, which at her age is already an exception to the norm. And so she kind of stands out from the beginning. People are kind of very much shocked whenever they find out that she was naturally conceived. And she is also raised by a mother who therefore still holds on to some of these older values about love and these older visions of what a romantic love would be. And so she is kind of questing throughout most of this book, kind of struggling with the feelings that she naturally has, the way how she cannot comply with what her mother thinks she should be feeling or she should be doing, at the same time isn't fully compliant with what society is saying that she should be feeling or should be doing. And so it's a character that's kind of in between both worlds, who will gradually be evolving more towards one of these two. And I will definitely say that there are huge triggers with this one, as there are with all Sayaka Murata's works. There, for the most part, don't seem to be as big ones as there might be in Earthling, for example, but then the ending definitely has a huge trigger warning. And I also will agree with people who say that it potentially went across the line. It is a very big trigger, and yeah, I can understand people who completely changed their mind about this book based on that trigger. I was not enjoying it to begin with, and that trigger was kind of like, wait, we're gonna go there? So Sayaka Murata is definitely always going to cross borders. She's always gonna look for the edge and cross over it, and that isn't necessarily a glorification or whatever. It's just her exploring these lines that we draw in the sand, and that is used as a way to kind of say something about society. It is a contemplation, it's not a glorification. And I do feel like that is also the case here, where it feels more bad because of our society and because of us knowing what she's doing within our society. In their society, it is still bad, but it's also a contemplation of if our values towards certain things completely change, what does that do to these types of actions? And let me be completely clear, I am not condoning what happens at the end of this book at all. But it definitely was a weird experience to read that scene because of the whole setup of the society, the way that there's sort of like no reaction to what is happening because the person undergoing the trigger has no frame of reference for this trigger at all. They don't know what's happening, they don't know the implications of that, they have not been taught to feel anything about this, and they don't seem to have any sort of natural responses to this neither. And that, I think, is what Sayaka Murata is trying to explore. But yeah, it is a huge trigger, absolutely. And I understand the people who say like this went way too far and it shouldn't be there. But for me, it shouldn't even have gotten there because I was bored. The main issue that I have with this is that it is very repetitive. So all of the questing of the character's insecurities and uncertainties, that lasts a long time, and she's constantly asking herself the same questions over and over again and exploring those same questions with different people, and so you are getting the same sort of doubt and hesitation over and over again, and I just couldn't deal with it. It just became too boring for me. I couldn't continue on because there wasn't really anything that was pushing me forward in this book. I feel like it was much more service level as well when it comes to these sort of like criticism or discussion of society and the way that the values that society holds, which is something that typically is pushing me through a Sayaka Murata work. Typically that is what I'm interested in, that is what makes me kind of like steam train through one of Sayaka Murata's works, and in this one it just didn't work all that well for me. Maybe because this is also just something that is of lesser interest to me. I don't want kids, I think I'm asexual, so like for me these thematics, they don't really work, or they're not things that I really think about a whole ton, so perhaps that is also the reason why I then also intellectually didn't latch on to it as much as I have to other works by her. But so yeah, that is what I read this week so far. I have also included in my tally for this week for Team Circle the pages that I have so far read in Her Majesty's Royal Coven number 2. So those pages and like the 31% of the punishments for the move on the board have been attributed to Team Circle. The rest will be attributed to whichever team I'm joining next week. But so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video and see you guys for the next one. Bye!